Hello again and welcome to video 4 in the Zen paddling series. Today I promised that I would show you some stretches that are particularly helpful for paddlers, but they're helpful for everybody. Especially, it turns out, women. Now, fit and strong women, particularly who've got a strong core, if you watch them go up and down stairs and you're behind them, you'll notice their heads go up and down straight. And most men, right up into their sort of 70s or 80s, do this, head up and down. It means their weight is going up and down and they're symmetrical. As women get older, what you will find is they go up the stairs like this. And they're using the weight of their body to take them towards the next step. And that's why there's a preponderance of falls in women, older women, and also broken hips. So some of the problems that cause that are tightness around the core, the hip flexor muscles, and also weakness. And that's particularly important for paddlers, is having flexible hips, strong lower abs, and also especially not shortened abs. So let me take the position of paddling and we'll see where the shortening occurs. And let's not forget, we're also at the moment in the pandemic spending most of our time sitting down. Even if you're cycling, you're sitting down. If you're at the computer, you're sitting down. If you're watching television, you're sitting down. And there's a consequence. So, I'm pushing my feet up against the base of a sofa, and you'll see in the paddling position we're slightly forwards, straight back, bent legs and extended feet. So we're going to be producing lots of compression in this area to resist the force we're generating with our paddle stroke. If not, we end up going backwards. So we're constantly tightening these abdominal muscles and consequently the hip flexor muscles at the front. They get shorter. They get stronger, but they get shorter. That can cause issues with lower back pain. And if you're getting lower back pain from paddling, it could be because you've got very tight hip flexors. So what I'm going to do today is simply go through anatomically the kinds of stretches you can do to focus on particular areas. And of course, being Zen paddling, we want your mind focused on what does it feel like when you have a tight shortened muscle and when it starts to release and lengthen. And the more you do it, the more the muscle remembers that it needs to be longer. So it actually adds bits to the ends of each muscle fibre to make the muscle longer, because it knows somehow it's got to be able to stretch further. You're also trying to stretch the tendons, and they take more work, and usually that's where the let's say the discomfort comes from when you're stretching. It's the tendons, not so much the muscles. So I stretch before I exercise. I've just finished a 2-hour HIIT session. I'm a bit knackered, but I'll show you what I do before I really start anything heavy. Some of the exercises, stretches rather, I do during because I can feel them tightening, and I also want to loosen for the next exercise. And then some stretches in the warm down to know, can I actually walk away from the exercise session without tightening up? Cool down or warm down exercises are really important. It always amazes me how few people do any stretching before they get in a boat. And then they hope to paddle with beautiful style. Your body's not ready for it. So, I'm going to get up, I'm going to show you whatever comes to mind of the things I do before I do anything dynamic, really dynamic. So, let's start with calves and feet. So, I've got a sofa here, and I hope you can see. I'll do it at the other end. So sofas are great because they've got different heights, they're heavy, they're up against the wall often, and you can use them for resistance. So the first thing I do is one foot behind the other and just drop my weight onto the back foot and just let the muscle relax. Just let it relax until your heel touches the floor. You're not trying to push down so much as just use your weight. And eventually that muscle will relax and relax and relax. And then put the other foot down. And you might find one calf is more relaxed than the other. Doesn't matter. And then put it half a foot width back behind the other one. So now to get your heel down, you'd have to either move your body and cheat or allow that muscle to lengthen again. You might apply a little bit of force from your arms, just a bit. Close your eyes, breathe deep, and as you breathe out, imagine that muscle in your calf softening. And never use the word relax, it doesn't mean anything. The muscle, you can feel a muscle soften. It wants to give in. Just let it give in. And then bring the other foot to the same position and do the same for that. My left calf is always more flexible than my right. I've just learnt to live with it. So that's stretching calves out. And you can do little bounces if you want. Doesn't matter. The next thing I do, before, remember in video 1, I do those twists with a pole in my hand. Before I do any of those, I simply tighten my pelvic floor and lower abs on an out breath. And then bend gently, I'll do it this way, gently from the hips. So I'm not putting any strain on my lower back, none at all. And I'm just noticing how tight I am in the hamstrings and my calf. My calf should be okay now. I've done a few minutes of those stretches. But my hamstrings are probably really tight. And I'm just using the weight of my body. And I can kind of drag my knuckles on the floor. My wife tells me I do it all the time. But then you can just grasp behind your calves and gently on an out breath, still with your abs tight, from the hips, and just pull slowly on the out breath and hold. And then again. And you'll reach a point where your tendons don't want to play anymore. They don't want to stretch. They don't want to slide over each other. Half the time it's the connective tissue fascia between all the little muscle groups that don't want to slide past each other, and they need a little bit of encouragement. And you just keep gently pulling and relax. Said I wouldn't use relax. Soften on the out breath. Just notice what sensations you feel as you bend a bit more. Now, further into my exercises, let's say when I've done squats, I might now do some dynamic stretching. I've got warmed up muscles and tendons now. So I might go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and hold. Now I can put the flat of my hands down quite easily. And then carefully come back up. And let yourself shake out. Then I know I'm going to do some heavy weight later, or push-ups. And push-ups always get my forearms hurting. Not so much across the shoulders, but forearms. So, and again before paddling, you're going to do maybe 5 to 10,000 grips. And if you don't prepare, this is where you get tight forearms and also those pains inside your elbow. So, the first thing to do is grasp hold of your forefingers, not your thumbs, just the forefingers. Move a bit closer. And bend your wrist until you feel the stretch in the back of your forearm. And just hold it. On an out breath, maybe pull it just a little bit more until you get that first real tweak at, ooh, no more, no more. And then relax. Grasp the forefingers of your opposite hand. Not exactly a straight arm, a little bit of bend, and just pull and stretch and stretch and relax. And I do that 2 or 3 times, maybe 10 seconds each. The next one is to turn palm up, grasp your fingers, straight arm, and just pull your hand back. And that obviously will stretch the front of your forearm, where you can see all the veins. And relax, shake out. Do it again. 10 seconds, 3 times. And then do the opposite arm. Hold it for 10 seconds. Do it 3 times. You can also do your thumbs if you want. You can pull those backwards a bit and hold them. And then wiggle your fingers. Next arm exercise is to draw one arm straight across, put the other in front with a bent arm and pull on the bent arm. Relax the other one and just pull. And what you're trying to do is stretch the shoulder out across here. You might put a little twist in, get a bit more stretch and just soften on the out breath. Remember, you're going to do 5,000 to 10,000 rotations of this arm. And then do the opposite one. Straight arm and then the bent arm in front and pull on the bent arm. And you'll find that one of your shoulders is much more flexible than the other. It's because you're either right or left-handed. And hold it. Maybe do that 20 seconds, 3 times. Okay, where are we going to go next? Next we're going to stretch out the core. Okay, so I'm going to move the camera slightly and get to the floor. Hello again. So one of these exercises I've shown you before, but I came across a little tweak that might be good. And I don't mean a hurt myself tweak, a little change. So that you can learn to search round the different components of each of the muscle groups and know when you've reached them. And on one side is one of these muscle groups more tight than the other side. And if so, I need to work on that side more than the other side. So this exercise was the one where we're going to turn our hips. Okay? So you start off with bent knees, lying on your back, and just roll over. I'm really relaxed at the top end. The shoulders are as flat as I can get them, and I'm feeling the stretch here. Okay, which are very important muscles. The trapezoids, etc. These are the muscles that transfer the force generated by the legs and the hips and connects it to the shoulder in the stroke. So we're just going to lie as far over as is comfortable, and then we're going to do the same on the other side. Now I'm much more flexible on one side than the other for reasons which I may have already bored you with, but are due to breaking my leg twice. So you'll see this knee floats in the air and it naturally will not fall. Okay, so it means I've got to work harder
to keep myself symmetrical. So let's go down onto one side. And we take the leg beneath the bottom leg and put its weight on top of the other one. Let me move over. You put the weight on top of the other one. And use the weight of this leg that's now on the top just to gently push down. And what you find is you'll get a certain area that you really feel the stretch. I'm feeling it pretty much from hip to ribs at the moment and a little bit down the front. If I bend my leg more and pull, I'm feeling it more in my bum now, in the glutes, the lateral glutes. If I straighten the leg a little and then push, it all comes into the abdominals, the deep abdominals, starting on the inside of my pelvis and running up to the front of my rib cage. So simply by bending this leg more or less, I can change the muscle group that I'm stretching. It's really quite intense when you get it right. And then you would do the same on the other side. You swap over, the bottom leg goes on top of the other one, and with a semi-bent leg, you pull down. And again, this time you're relaxing all the muscles that you can, and you soften and pull down on the out breath and hold. I do it with the straighter leg, more of the abdominals come into the stretch. If I do it with a much more bent leg, my glutes get stretched. I feel it right up into the small of my back. And of course, do it little by little.
Okay, that's that one. What else can we do? Well, we can do a variation of that that gets right into those potentially shortened hip flexors at the front of our legs. So this time, we're going to have a straight leg at the bottom. We're going to bend the top leg and get hold of it and pull it back. So we're trying to make the knee go backwards, and you get a really big stretch in the front of your hip, in your groin area. And of course, don't overdo it. Just search around with your mind's eye. Eyes closed I always prefer. And then maybe change the angle a bit. Change the angle a bit more, open the knee out and stretch. And really search around. And you'll find places you can stretch that you never knew you could stretch. Okay, if you don't like that, lying on the ground, you can go back to the sofa again. And this time, rather than going down on a bent foot like this, what we're trying to do is we're going to stretch here, which means now we go much further back, almost in a lunge. We use the arm of the sofa to steady us, and then drop down on the front leg. All the weight now is on my hands on the sofa, and now I've got a wonderful stretch that I can do some dynamic stretching if I want. And here is really getting stretched. And you're trying to overcome all that sitting that we're doing at the moment. And maybe paradoxically, it helps you sit up better in the boat to be more flexible. You get better connection on the catch if you're flexible. So that's another one, the modified lunge with the good old sofa. What else can we do? Oh yes, thigh muscles. When you're sat down, they shorten. If you do lots and lots of squats, they shorten. And that means you've got an imbalance between the hamstring muscles, the back and your glutes, and the quads. So we need to stretch out the quads. And the best way I've come across it is either invest in one of these rollers, yeah, and I put the roller down. I've got dodgy ankles, so I have to cover that to make, or buy a softer one than I'd bought, and kneel across it. So my knees are on the floor, my instep, my ankles are sitting on top of the roller, and I'm sitting up. I'm sitting as far back as I can, and I'm stretching out the quads. And it's just great. You can just sit there watching television, stretching your quads out until your bum touches your heels. And it's just doing it naturally. The muscles eventually go, do you know what, I can't be bothered to try and keep short. I'll just relax. Then you can turn it into an exercise. So I'll do it sideways. So you can see where my feet are now. I'm sat down. I'm going to lock my hips, just put my arms across my chest, and I'm going to raise myself up just by tightening these quads, making these quads work. And I'm just going to go up and down. I'm not bending my waist, I'm just using my quads. This is a dynamic stretch. It's a really interesting exercise because the science shows that if you do exercises with lengthened muscles, they get stronger quicker than if you do it with shortened muscles, even with a weight. You have to be careful, but I probably do a couple of hundred of these during my exercise. And you can put a weight across your shoulders, you know, if you've got a cat, get a bag of cat litter and hold it to your chest. Use whatever's around. Now, you don't need to buy a roller. You can use 2 cushions. As long as your knees touch the floor, you can do it. Not quite as stable, which is actually a good thing, and you can get deeper. So I'm sitting right back on my heels, my knees have come off, and now I've got to get myself back up. Oh, it's a fantastic stretch. You can also modify where your knees are. So at the moment my knees are sort of medium position. I can bring them together and do the same thing. And what you find is you are stretching and exercising a different part of the quad. You get a sensation that's more on this outer area. If you then move to a wide stance and do the same thing, it hits you right in the middle, these inner parts of your thighs. So that's a dynamic stretch. That's really good. Now the other place that paddlers get tight is here, and in the outer part of the muscles that insert around the outside of the hips. So by sheer accident and laziness, I came up with another stretch, which is you simply sit on your heels and drop the outer hip. So you can balance yourself like this and just keep dropping the outer hip. Keep your head straight, and yeah, a wonderful stretch here. And you can actually go all the way down. Bring yourself back up, head straight. Oh, I've got a cramp in my foot. Head straight, and then stretch. So you're always balanced on this arm. So that's a good one. Now the final stretch I'm going to show you today is stretching the deep glute muscles. Now I know a number of people have got issues with their glutes and their lower back, and the two are obviously connected. You can have very powerful glute muscles, but if the glute medius, deep one, shortens from sitting and cycling and kayaking, it can really irritate your sacrum and the general lower back area. And once that gets inflamed, it can take a long time to settle down. I know this, I've just had 3 months with it. So one of the exercises my physio recommended is the following. And again, it's going to use the arm of this sofa. And the reason I like so many of these exercises is because I can do them sitting down after a long exercise session. What we're going to do is put one foot up against the sofa arm and then cross the other leg over. Now if you cross the leg at the foot rather than crossing it at the knee, and then drop your back to the floor and keep trying to push your bum into the floor. You can tighten your abs at the same time. You get one set of stretch in your glutes and you can really get a stretch on. You can also put your foot up against the wall, and the higher you go, the more distance you've got to go to be able to put your back and your bum on the floor, so the more stretch you get in your glutes. And then do the other way. So on both sides, I've got my ankle against my knee and I'm pulling my bum down, stretching that muscle out. Then if I cross my leg at the knee, so my knee is over my other knee, and I try and roll my bum into the floor, tightening my lower back, arching it, you get an entirely different part of your glutes that get the stretch. So that's that one. Is there anything else? Oh yes. Last thing, and I'll just modify the video. Most of us, our bodies are asymmetrical, and because of that, our stability is asymmetrical. So you might find that you fall in more often on one side than the other, or you have to make more support strokes, or your catch always feels stronger on one side than the other. And it's simply because we're asymmetrical. Almost every person is. And the kind of thing you can do, which is a stretch and a balance, to check if your stability is the following. And remember, I've been at it nearly all morning, exercising. So if I fall over, it's because I'm knackered. Okay, so here we go. We are going to stand on one leg, he said, grasp the ankle of the other leg, hold it for a second, and work out where you are producing the balance. Are you having to work really hard at the hip, or is it your ankle that's having to do all the work? And then put one arm in front, and then gradually draw your knee backwards, the one that's in the air. Slightly bent right leg, and then keep stretching out that knee behind you. If you can hold that for a minute, your hip is pretty stable. And then do it on the other side. I always find that I'm much more stable on the right. So that's it, that's stretching. The road cleaner's coming and he'll make a hell of a noise any second, so I'll say goodbye.